Hello, I'm Dorina Landa, and I'm the Executive Director of Advancement at the University of Toronto's Temerty Faculty of Medicine. And I also have the distinct privilege of serving as the university's Assistant Vice President for Advancement Relations with Healthcare Institutions. I am so pleased to welcome you today to this latest installment in our Temerty Medicine Talk series, an in-depth conversation between our Dean, Dr. Lisa Robinson, and the Globe and Mail's health columnist, André Picard. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it's been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are truly grateful for the opportunity to live and work on this land. As Canada's largest and one of the world's highest-ranked faculties of medicine, the University of Toronto's impact on health and healthcare is truly felt far and wide. We have over 14 affiliated teaching hospitals, more than 8,000 clinical and research faculty members, and more than 9,000 learners spanning just about every imaginable field and subfield within health. Then add to that more than 70,000 alumni working around the world, and there is no question that the Temerty Faculty of Medicine community is a powerful force in health research, education, and patient care. Needless to say, it's critical that we have strong leadership at the helm. So when it was announced just over a year ago that Dr. Lisa Robinson would be taking over as Dean, an alumna, an accomplished researcher and educator, as well as a leading expert in pediatric nephrology, silent and not so silent cheers ran through the proverbial halls. We are delighted to introduce Dean Robinson to our broader community, and who better to facilitate this conversation than award-winning health journalist André Picard. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoy the conversation. And with that, I'll turn it over to André to get us started. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Darina, for that kind introduction. As you heard, I'm André Picard from the Globe and Mail. Today, I'm looking forward to chatting with the new Dean of the Temerty Faculty of Medicine, Dr. Lisa Robinson. Dr. Robinson, welcome. It's really great to be here with you today.
Well, thank you, André. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Now, I have a lot of questions for you, and we had a lot of questions from the audience. So I want to dive right in so we can hear as much as we can learn as much as we can about you. So I want to start taking you back a bit. You're the dean now, but how did you get started way back when as a clinician and a researcher?
Oh, that was a long time ago. Well, I got started. I'm a Torontonian, so I'll say that first of all, through and through. So I was born in Toronto. I grew up in Toronto, and I am a proud U of T alumna. So I did my undergraduate studies here, and then also went to medical school here. And after I finished medical school, I did some training in internal medicine here in Toronto. And then I decided I wanted to be a pediatrician. So I did my pediatric residency training in London, Ontario at Western. And I was really drawn to, I think, all of the mysteries and interesting biology of the kidney. So I decided I wanted to become a pediatric nephrologist. And so after I finished my residency training, I went to Duke University in North Carolina to pursue my fellowship training in pediatric nephrology. And I really decided that I wanted to become a clinician scientist. And so I did some further research training in the departments of immunology and medicine, and became a clinician scientist. And I practiced on faculty at Duke for several years, and then came back to Toronto I think in 2002 now. And I work at SickKids as a pediatric nephrologist and clinician scientist. And I've been a proud faculty member here for that time, and I have never looked back. This is truly the best place in the world.
Now, I know we have a lot of students in the audience and young researchers. I'm always fascinated by how someone chooses a specialty. So you became a kidney doctor. Was there something special there that triggered you because internal medicine, you can go anywhere, but you went to nephrology?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think, well, first of all, I had phenomenal role models and phenomenal teachers in nephrology, and I'll call out a few of them. So Mitch Halprin, who is a legend here in Toronto, has really taught so many people and mentored so many people, was was somebody I was very privileged to be able to work with early on. Really taught me about the mysteries of the kidney, and then some role models at Duke University as well, John Foreman, Del Wigfall. But the real answer is I became a nephrologist, I think, because I hate memorizing things, and I don't think I have a very good memory. And what I loved about nephrology is that if you understand the physiology, you can figure out pretty much everything that you need to know. So that really appealed to me. There's a lot of everything seems very logical. There's calculations and math, and you don't have to memorize too much. So that's the actual answer.
And what about working with kids? That's not easy for everyone.
No, and and again, I think when I was doing my training, this was when the system was a little bit different, and so I was exposed to internal medicine early on, and I did my pediatric rotations quite late, quite late in the game, and I loved it. And then I was torn. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and so when I was finishing medical school, I applied to internal medicine, and I did a comprehensive year of internal medicine. And I absolutely loved it. It was wonderful. It was a really formative experience, teaching me how to think and how to approach problems in a logical way. And then after that, though, I really miss the kids, and I miss the opportunity to be able to work with children and their families and their communities. And so I decided to do pediatrics after that. I think, maybe if we had medicine pediatrics programs in Canada the way they do in the US, I might have pursued something like that. But, I feel so fortunate. I do not regret a single choice I've made, and I feel really lucky to be able to do what I do.
Now, another real life-changing moment for students is residency. Going through this very stressful CARMS process, you ended up at Western. Often people end up practicing where they do their residency, but you didn't.
Yeah, that's right. Well, so I ended up at Western to do my pediatric residency because, well, there were lots of reasons why. It was a fantastic experience. I had great training. But my husband, who is a classmate, we got married after internship, was doing his residency in family medicine at the time in London. And we thought it would be really nice if we actually got to live in the same city at the same time. But you're right, I didn't, and oftentimes people do end up practicing where it is that they train. But what I was really interested in doing was, as I said, pursuing a career as a clinician scientist. And I felt that I needed to have deeper training in some areas of biology and basic science. And the opportunities that I wanted to pursue were at Duke University. And so that's how I ended up there afterwards.
Yeah, a good reminder too. Your partner often has a lot of a say in how you make these choices in retrospect. I wanted to delve into a bit more this clinician researcher wearing the both hats. A lot of people, it's one or the other, but you've done both and done both well over the years.
Yeah, I mean, the clinician researcher, clinician scientist framework is a really, really important one. And I think clinician scientists they're uniquely positioned to be able to bring innovation to patients because they work and they live in both worlds. And I would say that is nowhere more true than here in Temerty Medicine and our partner hospitals. Within our ecosystem, we have 700 clinician scientists, 700, like that's really something. But we have to be mindful though that this career path is also under threat. It's not an easy career path. The period of training, as you can imagine, is very long. Sometimes training can last 15 plus years. There are also lots of uncertainties in terms of funding, career stability, but it is incredibly rewarding. And so I do think like this is a priority for me. And I think all the time, what can we do to be able to sustain and enhance this career pathway? So I think the first thing that we can do is to encourage young people to consider these careers by making sure that they are actually exposed to clinician scientists at very early stages of training. And that's even before medical school, I think. The other thing that we need to be doing is thinking of ways in which we can secure sustainable funding for these kinds of programs and these pathways. And then because the training is so long, we need to think of ways to streamline the training as much as possible. And we do have opportunities to do that now that we've moved from like a time-based framework for training to a competency-based framework for education. And historically, when we haven't done this as well as we could, we have lost like really talented clinician scientist trainees to programs, many of them in the US, that have programs to be able to streamline the training. So that's an active focus of ours here.
But there's some pressure on clinicians. We're short of practitioners. People are saying, well, why are you spending time fiddling around in a lab or writing papers when you could be treating patients?
Yeah, and again, I think, within Temerty medicine, we were so lucky, and I think we have such an important culture recognizing that we need people who do all of those things if we're really going to have impact for patients. It's really important that we have people who are really seasoned practitioners who are expert in their field, but they need to be working very closely and synergistically with researchers and innovators, because in that way, the types of research questions that we ask are the right ones, the ones that are really that make the most sense. And the types of studies that we design are much better because they're not just abstract. They actually are really grounded in what matters to patients and families. And we have that opportunity here. And I think we do have a culture. There's always more that we can do to enhance it, where people do understand that if we want to impact not just the patient and the family in front of us, but people well beyond, really thinking about our broadening our sphere of influence, we need people who do all of these different things.
Yeah, and who better to learn from than the people doing the work on the front line, feeding it back into research? And
Absolutely. And I think it's actually really good for training as well, because clinician scientists may think about things in a different way as well. And so, I think about this on rounds a lot. And so if I'm on rounds with medical students or other trainees, I may ask questions in a different way. I think in medicine, a lot of the time, the things that we do and the way that we practice, well, this is what we were taught to do. This is what our teachers taught us to do, and likely what they were taught to do as well. But if you really start to dissect things and you really start to think about, like, the molecular and cellular basis of disease, then some of the things that we do maybe don't make the most sense. And there's probably opportunities to enhance what we do and to refine what we do. And so I think it is very important to model that curiosity for young people, for trainees.
and I talk to, like you talk to, a lot of young medical students, and I seems to me today they really want to do a variety of things. They really want to do research and clinician and teaching, and have their fingers in many pies. So that the demand is there for it now too.
For sure. I mean, I think I'm so inspired all the time by the trainees. And I feel sometimes that if we could just get out of the way and let them do their thing, then we'd be really much better off. They're brilliant, and they want that knowledge, and they want that experience in so many different areas. So we have programs like our MD PhD program. We have many pathways for clinician scientist training. We have an MD MEng program, so engineering. We have programs that combine medicine with business. We have lots of curriculum in AI. So, the young people really, they really are the future, and they're hungry for so many different, for career exploration in so many different areas.
So now that we're talking about the students, take me back. How are things different now than when you were a medical student a couple of years ago or so? How have things changed in the faculty?
Well, it was more than a couple of years ago, but when I walk down the hallway, it seems like it was yesterday sometimes. So the curriculum has actually changed quite a bit compared to when I was a medical student. When I was a medical student, the curriculum, there were the first 3 years, I would say, were more didactic. There was, of course, interaction with patients, and we did training in the hospitals and in clinics. But I would say the focus was more didactic. But the way that the curriculum has shifted now is to integrate more patient care and direct interaction with patients much earlier. And I think that's a good thing, with a real focus on problem-based learning as well. And I think that's good, because when students are are learning the pathophysiology of something, it actually makes real sense to them because they can connect it in a real world way to patients that they're treating, that they're looking after. So I think these things make a lot of sense. And as I said, the other thing that has changed, or one other thing that has changed, is the variety of what we call MD plus programs that we've created, recognizing that students have many interests and they're going to go on and do really important work in lots of different spheres. And so we want to make sure that we can equip them and train them so that they can do that work. They're the innovators of tomorrow and today, actually.
And care is changing too. Care has changed a lot in the time you've been practicing. There's much more multidisciplinary care. How does education have to change to deal with a practice where you're going to be working with a whole bunch of people, not in splendid isolation as doctors often did?
Yeah, that is such an important question, and I think it's actually really linked to the way that we think about primary care as well. So we need to be thinking about primary care and interdisciplinary care in an integrated way. I mean, I think we see the pandemic has really just exposed um, issues that were there all along, and there's no doubt that we have weakened access to primary care. So that's a major concern for Canadians. It's a big focus for us at Temerty Medicine. And we have, I think our family medicine program has about 40 teaching locations across the province. So all the way from Moose Factory to Wyerton and throughout the GTA. So, our Department of Family and Community Medicine faculty, they train about 375 family medicine residents a year and over 1,000 medical students a year. And we're really encouraged by Dr. Philpott, so Jane Philpott's leadership at the primary care action team in Ontario. And so when I say we, not just us here, but throughout the province. And so the mandate is to help connect every person in Ontario to primary healthcare within 5 years. And that's not just care by family doctors, that's integrated care. And so along those lines, Dr. Philpott and then Dr. Danielle Martin, who is our chair of the Department of Family and Community Medicine, they are powerful advocates for new ways of training and new ways of delivering care so that we can get the families and the patients the care that they need. And we can reduce the backlogs. We can encourage more physicians to pursue family medicine and to stay in family medicine. And this means also championing team-based primary care. So it's exactly what you said, physicians and nurse practitioners working alongside pharmacists, physician assistants, nurses, rehab therapists, psychologists, social workers, dietitians, and more. And we know that this is a model that is much better for patients as well as for practitioners. And so I'd like to emphasize that how we're educating family doctors is itself helping to support Ontario communities that are in need of primary care. So the training that we do is increasingly focused on just exactly what you described. It's interdisciplinary care teams. So we're training family medicine residents together with other healthcare professionals. And so moving from these family medicine teaching units to more comprehensive primary care training clinics. And the same kinds of models exist in the hospitals for specialist training as well. And we need to be doing those things to try to address gaps in care and make sure that we are training people to work and to practice in models that make sense for the province.
I'm sorry for the sirens in the background. We're giving it a medical feel here. They're driving by my place. So uh, now a critique of medical schools, not just U of T, but others, is you produce too many specialists. It's, they steer people towards specialties rather than family medicine. Is that a fair criticism?
Well, I mean, family medicine is incredibly important, and that's a huge focus for us, as I've said, at Temerty Medicine. And so we know that this is something that deserves our undivided attention, and it has our undivided attention. Our family medicine training program is incredible. And as I said, there's so many opportunities for people to train, not just within the GTA, but across the province. And so we've been trying to think more creatively about this. And part of the work is the training itself. But part of the work is also encouraging people not just to pursue careers in family medicine, but to stay in family medicine. And so part of the work needs to be thinking about what are the pressures, what are the things that discourage people from continuing on in family medicine. And I know there's much discourse about that. And we have a role that we can play there as well. And again, our Department of Family and Community Medicine, chaired by Danielle Martin, is very active in this field. And then the other strategy is thinking about where we train people, not only how we train them. So one of the things that has happened is that we have added 40 new family medicine residency positions. And so those trainees, who are obviously supervised by phenomenal faculty that we have at U of T, are delivering care that is much needed in areas that are underserved. So many different areas. And the reason that we've done this in this strategic way is because we recognize that residents and trainees are actually more likely to stay in the communities where they train. And so just to tell you what that translates to. So by adding these 40 new residents seeing patients in these communities, when you scale that, that translates to access to care that is sorely needed for up to 54,000 more Ontarians. So we're trying to think about not just how we train, but where we train as well.
And there's the 17 medical schools in Canada. There's 3 more coming on board. And those 3 are really special, going to focus on family medicine specifically. Is that a good thing? Do you like this competition, if I could put it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, we all have the same goal, and that is that we want to make sure that we have more trained healthcare providers to care for the people of the province. And so we must work in synergy with everybody across the province, and that's what we try to do as deans across the province. So working very closely with the new medical schools as well. And I think, really it's about, and there are going to be areas where we will partner very closely. So, for example, we have developed many model like pathway programs to try to encourage people from all walks of life to consider careers in medicine. And we have many mentorship programs for students at the high school level and the undergraduate level to encourage them to think about medicine. And so we partner really closely with new schools of medicine because we have the same goals. So there's natural areas where we will partner, and we already do. And then there's going to be areas where we're really different as well. And that's not a bad thing. So for example, not only do we focus in Temerty medicine on, very strong primary care, but we do a lot of specialty care and specialty training. And so there's going to be some areas where we're going to be very different and where we segment. So, for example, areas like neurosurgery and transplantation, solid organ transplantation, and including not just the clinical care, but also the research that happens in these areas too, because we have access to so much specialty and subspecialty type research. And then there's going to be areas where we will compete, and we're going to be competing probably for funding and for public opinion. We'll be competing for the best and brightest trainees, but that's okay. And but what I do want to remind people as well, because we hear a lot that, well, U of T is this ivory tower, but we're not just the ivory tower. And we are very grounded in community-based care, in patient-centered care. And patient-centered research as well. And so we have a major focus on equity and delivery of equitable care across the province and across the country. So, I feel actually really lucky because I think we do all of those things, and I think we do all of those things really well. So, as I said, there's going to be areas. So I think it's a good thing that we have these other medical schools coming in the province and here. And we just need to work together, as we already do, to think about how we work best to arrive to achieve the impact that we need, which is more care in a timely and dignified way for everybody across the province.
And I want to ask you more about students. We have a lot of questions in the audience questions about this. You have an embarrassment of riches to choose from. You have to turn away, I think, literally thousands of qualified applicants every year. How people are interested, how do you choose? How do you make sure you get the right students, that it's fair, how do you pick the right ones?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And again, we are so fortunate in that we have a fantastic team of very dedicated medical educators and innovators and leaders in this area. So, when it comes to student admissions, I think the first thing is making sure that we are thinking even before that, and making sure that we have, as I've mentioned, pathway programs to try to help students prepare for careers in medicine, and we've done a lot of work in that sphere, trying to make sure that everybody has access to opportunities, regardless of what your finances are and what your background is. And so, we've done a lot of work creating programs like, for example, the summer mentorship program for high school students, and community of support for undergraduate students and other students who are interested in pursuing careers in medicine. So I think that's the foundational work that needs to happen to prepare people. And then when it comes to admissions, a lot of work has been done and continues to be done by our admissions team. So Vice Dean Patricia Houston, Associate Dean Marcus Law, who is the Associate Dean of the MD students, the Director of Admissions, Glendon Tate, and before him, David Latter, to really think about, to help us focus on what is it that makes a good physician. And so, obviously, so there's many things that go into that. So obviously, we want to make sure that people are well equipped to handle the rigors of the program. It is an academically rigorous program, so we want to make sure that we're measuring those things. But we also want to make sure that are measuring the things and that we're assessing the things that we know are important qualities for physicians. So, for example, not just being a medical expert, but being a scholar, being a communicator, being a leader, being an advocate. So all of those things. So that all falls within the CanMeds framework. I'm sure you know about the CanMeds framework. And so as we try to design and refine our admissions processes, we're focused on that. And of course, we always need to be thinking about people who are going to be lifelong learners, because it's really important that we're choosing people who have that curiosity, who are going to remain engaged, and who are always going to be challenging themselves to do better for their patients and for themselves.
But I guess you're telling us it's more important than just having 99% in your undergrad.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, again, the academic criteria are very important because, as I said, it's a rigorous program, and we want to make sure that people are able to thrive in such a rigorous program. But beyond the academics, it's very important as well. And then we also recognize that the academics, and so what you see on paper, doesn't necessarily always reflect what somebody's capabilities are, because life happens and people have many other things that happen, and that will shape their educational path. So there could be family responsibilities or health issues or whatever. There's so many things that mean that people are not able to realize their full potential. And so we do give applicants the opportunity to talk about that and to explain that. And I know that our admissions committees really take that seriously. And
Yeah,
then the other thing.
admissions have
Oh, sorry.
admissions have changed a lot over the years too, right? You do these mini med
Absolutely.
interviews, and you actually learn about the person, not just their transcript.
Absolutely. And that's also why one of the things that has changed over the years is it's really important that the people who are reviewing the files and who are doing the interviews are engaged and are reflective of many different experiences within our community. And so much has happened in that sphere as well. And I think that's a good thing.
And let's talk about that aspect of, we want doctors to look like their community. We want the culture care to be culturally appropriate. How do you ensure that medical school looks like Canada?
Yeah, and I don't know that I would say that we want doctors to look like their community, but we do think that it's important
Or be
that
part of their community, I guess I should have
yeah,
said.
yeah, I agree, and I think that's probably how I would frame it, and we do really pay attention to that because we think it is important that the practitioners of the future reflect, the full diversity of of our society. And so, whether that's locally or more broadly across the province, across the country, but certainly we think about Toronto. And the reason that we know that this is important is, there's so much literature in this regard, and we know that when we have practitioners who are more reflective of the breadth of society, this can help to enhance the access to care and the quality of care that patients from communities that have been historically marginalized receive. Because they're receiving care sometimes from people who actually understand in some ways what their life experience might be. So this is not us making this up. There's a wealth of literature about that. And there's also a wealth of literature telling us that when we have medical school classes that are diverse, we train better doctors just in general. And it makes sense because when you have people who bring many different experiences into the same room, this gives us an opportunity to challenge dogma and to challenge cultural assumptions and to make sure that we are training everybody to be able to deliver care that is more culturally appropriate. So we can train better doctors in that way. And oftentimes there's this discourse that it's either you're going to choose excellence or you're going to choose equity. But in fact, we think that equity is part of choosing excellence. And when we were thinking about how we wanted to approach this, first of all, we have no quotas whatsoever, and we've never had quotas, despite the fact that people do seem to think this sometimes. And when we were thinking about how we wanted to approach this issue, we did a lot of consulting with different communities. And we did not change the academic criteria in any way. So we do not have different GPAs for people from different communities. We don't have any difference in MCAT scores or anything like that. And we don't really need to. We haven't had to do that because what we've discovered is just by focusing on the kinds of things that I told you about, for example, the community of support, programs to really make sure that people who are interested in careers in medicine, but who don't necessarily have the role models and the mentors, by ensuring that they have access to that, we have seen big changes in our medical school classes without changing any of the academic criteria. So I
But
think
the class photo looks different today than when you graduated.
Absolutely, it looks different today than when I graduated. And people bring with them just so many different experiences, and that really helps us to train better physicians.
Now, another hot topic today is IMGs, International Medical Graduates. How can a School of Medicine help integrate, this wealth that we have out there of people who are trained, but we have to figure out if they're up to Canadian standards of practicing medicine? What's your role in that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think we do have a role there. And historically, and this is way back when you're thinking historically about schools of medicine and faculties of medicine, we have tended to focus on what we think is really in our lane. So I would say really like education and research, and not so much the delivery of care, which is more, I guess, in the purview of community centers and of hospitals. But I actually do think that we have a role to be advocates, and that's because we're the largest faculty of medicine in Canada. We have an important voice. We also have incredibly smart people who work in our spaces who are very well equipped to reimagine how we train people, who we train, and how we deliver care. And so I think we can take advantage of that expertise to help reimagine systems of training and systems of care. And so I do think that we have a role, working obviously with broader partners across the province and regulatory bodies to try to help think about how can we modernize what we do so that we're taking advantage of expertise that is out there and that's sorely needed.
And I've asked you several questions about how medicine is changing, how teaching is changing, but I haven't asked yet. I want to ask you about innovation, entrepreneurship. That's become important in the field too. How does the medical school bolster that?
Yeah, that's a really, really important question, and that's very important to me. So that's a huge focus. And I think we're so well positioned to think about this here in Temerty Medicine because we have the benefit of having like incredible research that happens and innovation that happens across our 3 campuses. And we have amazing partner hospitals with research institutes that also do incredible work, so very groundbreaking. So the goal is to ensure that the discoveries that we make, so breakthrough discoveries that we make and that happen in universities and hospital research institutes, don't just sit on a shelf somewhere, but they actually touch patients and reach real people. And so what that means is developing, scaling, and bringing these discoveries to market to try to help improve people's health and well-being. And there's a few challenges there. So one of the major challenges is supporting our learners and our faculty to bring their innovations to market through helping to enhance their skills, so skills training, and then also tangibly supporting early stage entrepreneurs. And so we've been focusing quite a bit on that, and there's more that we want to do. And so that skills training includes things like curriculum, educational modules, workshops for learners, for staff, for faculty. We also have an entrepreneur in residence program that we are growing, and we're working very closely with the Central University. So this program helps to connect experienced leaders in the field with researchers. And then not long ago, we launched something called the MIT program. So it's the Medical Innovation and Technology program to try to equip our medical students, so MD learners, with the entrepreneurial skills that they need. And then not long ago, U of T was named the home of a new National Health Innovation Hub. And this is going to help accelerate commercialization of discoveries by building on Lab to Market. So Lab to Market, this is Canada's network for innovation, for commercialization, and for skills training. And the hub is going to be based here at Temerty Medicine in H2I. So this is the Health Innovation Hub Accelerator, which is led by the brilliant Professor Paul Santerre, and this will connect us to like a huge network of industry mentors and partner organizations. So this is about just over a $4 million investment over the next 5 years. So extremely exciting. And we've just hired a new director of commercialization, but there's much more I want to do in this field. And one of the things that we are doing is reaching out to our amazing U of T alum who are not necessarily here anymore, but who are all over the world, who are working in these kinds of spaces to try to engage them for their expertise. And so we're holding a few small sessions where we can speak with one another and just sort of build on their expertise. And we've had a few of those sessions so far, and they've been really interesting and very generative. So more to come in that area, but I think this is an imperative for us.
And there seem to be a few alum in the audience, I see. So that's a good sign. While we're
Yeah,
on the
and maybe I'll
technology,
just say one thing about that.
yeah.
And I think, this is the time to do it. So last year there was a report that was put out that looked at the research that happens within our ecosystem. So, the University of Toronto and the hospital partners. And what this report told us is that when it comes to the quality of the research that we do here, so biomedical and health science research, like we are at the top. So we're top tier. So we are up there with Harvard and Johns Hopkins and UCSF, so University of California, San Francisco, Stanford. So we are truly at the top in terms of the caliber of the research. But the report also pointed out that there is opportunity for us to really scale our impact by enhancing our efforts in commercialization and entrepreneurship. So that is exactly what we're going to do.
And while we're on the theme of technology, how is AI going to change medical education? Do we have any idea yet?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's changing everything. It's such an exciting area. And, just like AI is transforming other sectors, there's also huge potential to harness the power of machine learning in healthcare and education and health research. And again, like if we can't, who is better suited to do this than us here at the University of Toronto in Temerty Medicine? And that's for a few different reasons. Number one, I mean, U of T is a globally recognized center of excellence in AI and machine learning. There is a long history of leadership in AI, and I think we were all very excited to see Professor Hinton, so Jeff Hinton's Nobel Prize. It was really a moment, I think, for the university and a recognition of his work and the incredible work being done here at the university. And then the other opportunity for us is that through this ecosystem that I've been describing, we have like unmatched access to like a vast trove of data on large and diverse patient populations across our health ecosystem. So the work that we're doing in this space is being accelerated through TCARM. So this is the Temerty Center for Artificial Intelligence in research and education for intelligence research and education in medicine. So TCARM was established in 2020 with support from the historic gift, so the $250 million gift from the Temerty family. And as you know, I think you've spoken with him and interviewed him.
Yes.
Yeah, it's led by the incredible Professor Mohammed Mamdani.
Yeah.
And so this center brings together computer engineers, data scientists, biomedical scientists to enhance our medicine-specific expertise in this area and to strengthen health data infrastructure and to lead the development of new applications of AI for medical purposes. And we don't need to look beyond our ecosystem to see how this matters. And we have so many amazing examples of this. So I'll just mention one. So Unity Health in Toronto. So hospital in Toronto, as all of you know, hospital system. So they developed something called ChartWatch. And so ChartWatch tracks about 150 data points of patients admitted to the emergency room. And so it helps to look for patterns that indicate maybe an escalating emergency situation, and then when necessary, alerts the medical staff. And so last fall, the team published a study showing that ChartWatch had real impact, so was able to reduce the number of unexpected deaths by about 26%. So that's just one example, and we have so many other examples. And so, not only in clinical care, but AI is having such a major impact on discovery research. So, for example, it's revolutionizing drug discovery, and AI is being used to more efficiently and effectively identify drug targets and to help screen and model potential new therapies. And so, processes that used to take forever, so months and even years, and took a lot of trial and error, can now be reduced to weeks. And so going forward, what our focus is going to be on is a made in Ontario AI and medicine solution or suite of solutions, including applications that can help family doctors to streamline their work, and obviously working very closely with people within our spaces, as well as in other faculties like the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering. We will continue to invest in AI education, making sure that we have practitioners and health scientists with strong skill sets and a strong understanding of AI and machine learning. We will continue to support AI in research and development, especially for novel projects when they're in their early critical phases and the initial trials. And we see ourselves as leaders because we have so much expertise here, and we really want to help to guide and to lead work in AI in medicine, not just nationally, but also internationally. And I think we have all the pieces of the puzzle here. So really want to focus on that.
Now we're almost out of time, but I started out asking you about your early days as a student at U of T. You mentioned walking the halls. Those halls are still very similar now, but you're getting a new building. So I want to finish by asking you about this. This got to be exciting. What's going to be special about it?
Oh, yeah, this is going to be very, very exciting. So, the building is, so first of all, I should frame it. And you've been here, you've been in the medical sciences building. So, medical sciences building, the current West Wing is outdated. So it is sorely outdated, and it's not able to meet the needs of the researchers, the educators, and the learners who call it home. It served us very well, but the time has come for a home that does better meet our needs. And I think, like, when I think about what the building means, the building is going to physically embody what Temerty medicine is actually today. So a leading edge, inclusive faculty of medicine with a reach that extends like well into our city and well beyond the city. The Temerty building is going to occupy a very prominent and iconic location in King's College Circle. So that's important. It's going to elevate everything that we do with a particular focus on the research work and the education work. And it is going to serve as a convening hub for the faculty, for the broader university, and for our hospital partners. It's going to be an extraordinary new resource for the whole faculty. And I think it's going to be a beacon. It's going to help make us even more desirable destination for researchers, for clinicians, for learners. And I've seen some early designs, very exciting, much more to come. So stay tuned. So I look forward to telling you more about that in the future, but we're all very excited about it.
Well, I can't think of a better note to end on than a hopeful one like that, building a better, bigger school, making it more modern, more ready for the future. So, Dr. Lisa Robinson, thanks for joining us today for Temerty Medicine Talks. Thanks to the audience for being there. For those watching live, you can see a link to a brief survey in the chat window. We'd appreciate you taking a couple of minutes to provide some feedback so we can make our future events even better. I know we always get great audiences, great questions, and we want to keep doing that into the future. So thank you again, Dean, and best of luck.
Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thanks.